if you had to put like a category of...
But you're probably not going to talk about music.
Right.
No.
Or books.
Physical education in general. That's a passion of mine.
Hard left turn. Okay. Do you play in physical education? Do you play
It's all fair what, Chris?
Competitive
Video games.
things? Have you been hearing my nose or my beard on the pop screen lately? When you listen to it, because I've been rubbing my nose on the pop screen. I find myself doing it.
It's September 12th, 2012, and now you can play video games on your television.
This is Idle Thumb 74. I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
I'm Sean Vanneman.
And today we are joined by PC Gamer Executive Editor Evan Lahti.
Hey.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Evan.
Thanks for joining us. You probably remember Evan from, well, you may know him from the internet generally because he's all over that thing, but also he was here in the Idle Thumb's office a few weeks ago when we did our first of hopefully at least
thousands.
a few DayZ streams, and it was really excellent. He showed us how to exist in the stress-inducingly cutthroat world of DayZ, which is an awesome mod for Arma 2, and crazy shenanigans occurred. It was super fun.
Yeah, we found a bike.
Sean found a bike immediately.
It's so funny because after we had the DayZ experience, everybody was kind of saying like, "Oh, you guys had this very like sort of like serendipitous, idyllic."
It was blessed. Really.
Oh my! Every experience I've had since then has completely changed who I am in that world. I've only lived 2 other times, and they've each been different.
What do you mean you've only lived 2 other times? You've only lived how long 2 other times?
Okay, so the first time, I was like so big on DayZ after this stream. We we ran around for hours. Like, I was by myself for a long time. I found a bike, ended up meeting up with you. We had many grand adventures. So then I logged in as myself, and you start in kind of like the water on the water's edge. Mm-hmm. And I took like a few steps, and I hear like whack. What the hell was that? And then you were actually sitting right there, if you remember,
Chris.
But you were doing something. Chris was sitting on the other computer in the office. And I take like a couple more steps, and I hear like whack. I'm like, what is that noise? What is happening? So like I take my headphones off and I'm like listening in the room. I'm like, ugh. Like I crouch down, I look around, and I look over and there's this lighthouse. I'm like, oh, I should go to the lighthouse. That's where it's at. The lighthouse is where it's at. And then I'm like, oh, and then I'm looking and I'm squinting and I zoom in. I'm like, Chris, does that look like a person to you? Like,
I remember this.
Isn't that like up and like there's like this little like maybe 4 pixel black thing like rotating. I'm like, no, that's just the middle of the lighthouse. And then I take a couple more steps. Whack! Like, what the what? And I turn back to the lighthouse and get shot right in the face. So somebody was just dialing me in from the moment I went into the game. And now I just walk through that world in complete fear, like way more fear than I had when you and I played. It's turned me into like a distrusting murderer. It's really funny because you
turned me into a distrusting murderer. It's hilarious.
It's hilarious. He was once a regular guy on a bicycle.
So you're just experiencing the procedural multiplayer version of what apparently happens to every fictional single player video game protagonist, according to the Idle Thumb's reading of video games.
Yes,
this is apparently why
DayZ is actually training school for video game protagonists.
Crazy sociopath, yeah.
God, I'm so bad at this. I have to kill everyone. Which is actually what DayZ creates, apparently.
Yeah. But just a belief, which exists because it is true, that every other living human in the world is out to kill you, and therefore you must be the best killer of them all.
I'm glad also, though, that DayZ recreates the he hates these cans, stay away from the can scene from The Jerk.
What?
I'm unfamiliar with your reference.
Steve Martin's at a gas station, and there's just a bunch of like cans of oil behind him, and one of them just goes and explodes, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And then he sort of walks, and then another one explodes. and then a couple more do. Then he looks way across the scene and sees a sniper aiming at him, but then he misdeduces that the sniper in fact hates cans.
Oh yeah, that is exactly the experience.
So he tells everyone to stay away
yeah.
from the cans. That's why when you were describing it, like the pacing of that. So the DayZ guy basically ripped off that scene from.
DayZ guy basically hates cans.
Oh yeah. Oh, when I say that happened, I meant I was inside of a cutscene.
Yeah,
It was,
yeah,
based
that's
on
what
the
I'm
jerk.
saying.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
cool,
yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
So you had to do the QuickTime event where you press the buttons successfully, but then the last one you press is actually the one that just makes you die no matter what.
Makes your head
because it's
explode.
even-
Yeah.
But you were saying, Evan, because when we were playing on the stream, and it's totally worth watching if you haven't checked it out on the Twitch TV channel, that like when we first met somebody, we were talking about, okay, we're going to go into this castle. If we see somebody in there, what do we do? Like, oh, we kill them. Like, come on. And like that was a big conversation of the entire stream. I get it now. I totally get it now. Yeah.
And you sort of like enter these different like phases of trust almost. And I think like, perhaps for me, like as an experienced player, I've sort of gotten to this stage where it's more interesting for me to interact with players, right? Like even if I'm losing loot, I'm playing DayZ to have interesting experiences. I'm not playing DayZ to win. I mean, there isn't really a win state per se.
You're more of a DayZ anthropologist.
Sure.
Sort of just on the hunt for the human experience.
with a rifle.
Yeah, with an AK-47.
Yeah, but I mean, it's natural to sort of move from that initial stage of trust and like feeling things out and curiosity to like total distrust. You sort of swing wildly in the other direction. And you sort of, as you play more, sort of end up more in the middle. You develop some tactics that help you deal with people and, recognize someone who is shooting at you and not, perhaps. I mean, like, for example, because DayZ is built on ARMA, which has like a really complex ballistics simulation, you're probably hearing the bullet crack associated with the sound of a bullet that's actually very close to your head.
Yeah.
Which is different from a bullet that is 20 or 30 feet away from you.
Yeah.
Or even further.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole different set of sound
it was
effects.
total. It
Yeah.
definitely like
That's
just
really awesome.
based on what you read about that stuff in the military. Like going backwards, I'm like, that's what was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah. It's really amazing. Like,
Also, I love the curve you just described, which is basically what it's like to be a human in the world, where you're a child and you're essentially guileless relative to the rest of humanity, and you're very trusting because your life is provided for you by your parents for the most part, and then you get to be a teenager and you just hate everybody and everything's like you have all these stupid beliefs about how your parents don't know shit and everyone's wrong and like every man's out to get you, and then you get to be an adult and you're just like, oh, I guess I just have to live in this world. Yeah. You have to just somehow find that medium of somewhere between the two extremes that allows you to be a functioning human without just descending into shit or just being
Oh, I'm at the 16-year-old arc on this right now.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
So when you
I'm just going to stay in my castle and not come out.
when you play, like, when you have to roll a new character, like, what do you do? Like, what is your arc? Like, I don't even just go to town, try to find the most basic stuff, and then, like, how often do you break through into, like, a multi-hour experience? Like, it's such a... How?
Sure. So sometimes when I start a new character, I'm in a position where I sort of make the decision that having a lot of loot sometimes gives you the best experiences, sometimes it doesn't. So sometimes I'll just run straight into a big capital town or something and get as much gear as I can, right? Because it's sort of like low risk but high reward.
Right.
If I die, I kind of lose nothing.
Right.
And that's sort of like a common tactic to some players. That's part of the reason like those big central towns around the spawn points are so popular. But after that, like I'm really interested in just getting a group of players together and helping other people. It sounds weird, but like that's
it's like how does one approach somebody in this game? Because when I approach people, they shoot me in the face. Like, because I've been shot. Like the next time I went into the game, I got murdered the same way, but more. It was creepier. It was more face to face. Yeah.
I mean, the best approach is just to surveil people, to watch people for as long as you can, and sort of judge them and understand them. That sounds ridiculous.
Just observe them from afar.
Just judge them.
But that's what he said.
Judge them and then approach them.
That's exactly what he said. Like,
I've deemed you worth.
So, what is if you had to pin down why you enjoy that? Like why do you enjoy that as opposed to just essentially taking the safest route and just assuming everyone's out to get you? Like, what do you enjoy about altruism in DayZ?
Sure. I guess, because there's incredible risk associated with that, I think.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's sort of like, DayZ asks a lot of you to sort of like fill in the gaps, right? I mean, systemically there's some stuff there, but narratively you're really doing a lot of the work with your imagination. And in terms of like the benefit of what I get from, just in terms of like, okay, the series of events I would get from being the opposite of altruistic, shooting somebody, it would be, well, I found this really cool sniping spot and I got this really good gun and I shot this guy or I missed him. It's a little, simplistic or binary even in that way. I killed him or I didn't, or he did this or he killed me. I mean, all these interesting things can result when you start interacting with people, when you start talking with them.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the instances I had, one of my favorite stories in DayZ happened when I was really new to the game, when I was running up the coast of the players at night. We were like throwing flares and just looking for simple loot, like doing really basic stuff. And throughout this, I was like typing to him over chat and trying to talk to him. I just sort of figured that he didn't know how to bind his microphone key, like a lot of new players do. And I keep trying to talk to him for about 30 minutes or something and just trusting him the whole way. And about half an hour in, he talks back to me in Spanish. So I've been cooperating with this guy for half an hour, silently working together for kind of a similar shared goal without really being able to understand each other.
Yeah.
And then that totally resulted from just trusting and trying to work together.
I mean, it's really fascinating. Part of the reason I'm asking is because it's interesting to me. Okay, this is like a ridiculously absurd thing to put in the context of a video game, but
go on.
No,
but just saying.
I'm with you.
People often discuss why people engage in altruistic activities when there isn't any sort of direct personal gain out of it, especially outside of like a religious context or something where you believe you're going to be directly rewarded for those things in a tangible way. And it's interesting to me that a game like this comes closer than most video games can to exploring those questions because they avoid any end state at all. Like there isn't ever any just evaluation of how you did in total at the end. There's no conclusion to the story. It's like your conclusion in pretty much everybody's case presumably is just going to be you die eventually, which is how life eventually just ends. I guess the difference being in DayZ, you're only probably ever going to die. You're not going to die from natural causes, I guess. You're only ever going to die.
No, you can die from natural causes in this game. You can get too cold and die.
That's true.
That's true. I suppose.
Yeah, but you don't die through just becoming old until your body fails.
Yeah, at one point you don't have an arbitrary clock that runs out.
God, that would be crazy if characters did have a limited lifespan. But it was really, really long, but long enough that like a year in real time, for example, that would be crazy.
They're talking about implementing that as a zombie feature,
really?
actually.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So a zombie, like right now the zombie spawn system is really simplistic. It's based on proximity. You enter a town or get within 200 meters of a town and they spawn. They generate in the town if nobody's there. And they go away once you've been gone for about, a few minutes. Everybody's sort of out of that proximity, out of that radius.
Right.
But Dean Hall, the creator of DayZ, over at Bohemia Interactive, that's over in the Czech Republic, he's just talking about the idea of like sort of a to-live value on each zombie. So that gives them a lifespan, essentially.
Yeah.
And he's even like speculating at this idea, and it's like a very experimental concept, but of certain servers being zombie-free if people work that hard.
So people could band together to
actually
turn
eradicate.
a server to eradicate.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it's just totally an idea. He has a long list of these wild concepts he might pursue or not. But
that is really bad, especially some of the other stuff you were talking about that they have been floating that seem like they're interested in, or Dean's interested in letting players sort of shape a server.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah,
you know what would be interesting if you joined a server and some servers actually allowed you to completely eradicate the zombies and some didn't, but you didn't know when you were joining them. I feel like that's one of the only ways you could probably actually simulate what this situation would be like in reality, in the sense that people want to try and wipe the zombies out, but you don't really know if it's possible or not. Like you can't know for sure whether,
like if there's never a token on it that goes bink, this server is zombie free.
Exactly.
Like some people would just be like, I think we found them all.
Yeah.
Except there's one in a cave somewhere that's going to get you. Yeah, that's the one. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting.
I mean, DayZ doesn't have. Does that? I haven't played any DayZ, nor did I watch the stream because I suck. Does DayZ,
it's at twitch.tv/out of thumbs.
Does DayZ have the notion of zombies actually spreading in any capacity?
No. In terms of like virally, no.
Although that would be great if
there's a fixed count of zombies and you can eradicate them, but then you have the one guy left in a cave, someone goes and encounters him, gets bit, and then there are 2 zombies on your previously thought to be zombie-free server. That would be a hilarious, gross
Has
simulator.
he indicated whether he has any plans of any kind of actual infection or viral spreading?
Potentially.
That seems like it would only be interesting if there were fixed, if the zombie count was fixed, but could spread or something like that.
I'm not sure if he's interested in that mechanically, but I do know, like, in terms of a narrative, he's interested in sort of working in these small clues about like where the virus originated. I wouldn't think about it as like a conventional story, but Dean's brother is actually like a virologist or something in New Zealand, and he's like been talking with him about the background of the story and putting it together. Yeah, just the notion of altruism again. It's been really interesting to follow the ways in which players are sort of finding ways to like restore safety and like normalcy, so to speak, to these to these servers and that they play on. For example, you have players that are sort of running infrastructure. You have players that have vehicles on a certain server, a helicopter or a bus or a car or something, and they will say, give me this item or show me that I can trust you, and I'll take you from point A to point B. Or you'll have players that are sort of professional medics that will like post a forum thread or something and say, okay, tell me where you are, tell me where you're hurt, and I'll bring medical supplies to you and help you out. They're performing services in a game, like without any prompt whatsoever.
Right, and without any direct reward bestowed upon them. That's really awesome. It's really interesting. Games. It's funny that a game like this, which the subject matter of which is so bleak, actually allows for moments of entirely self-instituted humanity, whereas a lot of games that ostensibly have stories that are much more that purport to be much lighter than what the actual story of DayZ is are frequently just literally nothing but just war or violence or conflict for the entire game, because that's all they mechanically support. Whereas a game like this, which is fictionally about a very, very bleak thing, because it puts so few constraints on the players in terms of any implicit or explicit goal, actually allows genuine humanity to come through. That's really fascinating to me. Good job, Dean Rocket Hall. You were on a panel with him.
Yeah.
How was that at PAX? Yeah,
great.
We haven't talked about PAX
really
at all.
Great.
Because the last panel was our PAX panel.
The last episode was our PAX panel, which was the morning PAX started. Yeah. So, we didn't actually see PAX.
3 hours later, I went to the... Evan invited me to the PC Gamer... The Uncertain Future of Storytelling, I think. Yeah. It was really great. The thing that was cool about it was there was sort of Greg Kasavin and myself, and who write very sort of traditional stories, like intermingled with game systems. Mm-hmm. And then there was Dean Rocket Hall and
Notch.
Yeah, Marcus Pearson, is that his last name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Notch, who build these sort of world systems and then say, go tell a story in it. And then there was also
Jake Solomon.
Jake Solomon, he's working on XCOM Enemy Unknown.
Oh, cool.
And he was telling more of I guess their story is very...
That's a little bit in between, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a little bit in between, yeah.
It is a fairly linear structure, just in terms of just narratively, but a lot of what's cool about XCOM are the micro stories that emerge out of your named soldiers who live or die with great frequency across those missions, or accomplish heroic things and create an arc. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it felt pretty cool. I mean, it was neat to see sort of the spectrum of what's being done right now. Kind of everybody talking about it from their certain perspectives. Everybody was like super duper smart. And I think everybody has a slightly different opinion of their own stuff than, so that's always really interesting, because I think there's definitely like a grass is greener sort of aspect to where I'm like, God, like systems driven games. It's like, oh, that's all I want to, why am I not making those? And it was cool to have mutual appreciation across it all. And I do think that like that sort of broad, for a layperson, right, being able to discuss kind of story in Minecraft, like versus story in Bastion, right? It's a hard conversation to even have, because the genres are so wishy-washy. They're so not constructed the way film is. Like, oh, this is a drama, this is a comedy, this is that. it's more how do you describe the systems and how do you imagine story being presented within those systems, which I think that sort of the inability to have concrete discussion about story as a certain type of thing in a game is why people are always there's always this. I mean, the name of your panel is the uncertain future of storytelling in games. You know, it's like it's this ethereal, difficult thing to pin down.
I wish stories in games were better. Like I play games for the story, and it's like that's the most like it's just you've said something that means a bajillion trillion things.
Yeah, which is really tough. I mean, it was tough being on because like I think I've at one point, and the panel is actually like one of the experiences in my life that has contributed to this feeling where I've just sort of made peace with wherever story is and just sort of I'm now just sort of more curious about each individual project that I'm either working on or at each individual game that I'm playing and less trying to like categorize it or like rank it on a scale of how good story is in it. But you know, that's not going to be a broadly accepted feeling, I don't think. You know, I think you have to kind of come to that after a lot of rumination about what a game is to you. I remember Jake and I actually, you remember you got so pissed at me when you were playing Super Meat Boy that one time.
Yeah, you walked by and was, what is this? Ugh, and walked away. And
you're like, I'm like, ugh, like, this isn't a real game. I did say something. I was
like, well, this is like the pinnacle of what a game is. This is fucking Super Meat Boy.
And I felt like it's so funny. Like
Jake Rodkin. I love thumbs.
Of all like the sort of things I've said in
Super
my life.
Super Meat Boy is game.
That are
this is the pinnacle of what a game is. This is Super Meat Boy. The way you said that was incredible.
I was actually, that just is a commercial for Super Meat Boy, like in their weird 90s.
Jake actually grew a crazy walrus mustache in order to say that sentence, and it kind of fluttered at me. But I'm definitely... That was like probably a year and a half ago, maybe now, 2 years ago. I feel like I'm in a more zen place with story in games in general.
Wait, so it was the story that you were reacting to? Or?
No, but like the capacity for anything important, I think. And that was kind of a douchebag thing, I think, at that moment for me to just cast outward into Jake's face. He was very upset. Rightfully so. I don't know. That's an experience. That was an interchange with you. It stuck with me.
Super Meat Boy taught you a lesson. You learned something from that Meat Boy who's...
I did. That Meat Boy sat me down.
Yeah.
That Meat Boy sat me down.
Yeah. But no, what did you think about... It's so funny because I actually don't... Like, I kind of go into a fugue state when I'm in those sorts of things.
Oh, me too.
But what was your takeaway from that panel?
My takeaway was like, I don't know, it was... To some extent, it was just like fan fiction to have all you guys up there. That sounds like very non-journalistic of me, but to have, I mean...
Oh, you mean that time when like Greg and I started rubbing lotion on each other's body? You mean that type of fan fiction?
not slash fiction necessarily.
Oh, sorry. I misheard. Go on.
To have, Notch...
to
have Notch talking to Dean and just seeing what they're saying. Like, as someone who interviews people, that's exactly what I'm interested in. And what's the first thing they talk about? Because they're both people that... like indie designers that are sort of mirroring each other in terms of like they're getting very successful very early before their game is done, and like what does that do to a person?
That's true. That is a really interesting point about those two guys specifically. Yeah, it's a weird thing, and it's probably becoming increasingly common now because it's even possible to be, and especially with that kind of game, right? Like that's not going to happen with the kinds of games that you or Greg make, for example, because you wouldn't want people to be
early access beta open world sort of system collision festival multiplayer.
Yeah. Like the FTL guys, for example. I mean, they're not household names or anything, but I mean, they made a couple $100,000 on their game before it was released.
Yeah,
thanks to Kickstarter, which is awesome.
It's happening certainly with games that sort of self-publicize, and those are two of them. I mean, DayZ, when you do something interesting, you want to share it with people, either people just by talking to them about it, telling them the story that happened, or taking a screenshot or something like that. And obviously Minecraft, like when you spend this, X amount of time rebuilding, I don't know, Grace Cathedral or something, you want to show it to people.
Yeah. I mean, we've had, I think, really like strong story experiences inside of Minecraft that are very like DayZ-like in this, except that like no other player assassinated me. Early on in the game, but the sort of like when you're headed towards somewhere with a certain goal, you make goals for yourself, and then the story of your playthrough just sort of happens to yourself,
right?
And I don't know, like that. Those are experiences that I kind of grapple with because I enjoy them so much, and they're the ones that I seek out as a player. That God, it's like I want to figure out sort of like how the stuff that I work on currently can be influenced by that more. I don't know. I think about that stuff a lot. Oh, I had a thought.
I mean, something I really admire about Minecraft and DayZ, and like that they both have in common is they don't overwhelm you with information. And in fact, they give you almost no information whatsoever. And while Minecraft is not a brutal context, I mean, I guess there's a day-night cycle and monsters can kill you at night, and that's a little challenging. There's something about being in this totally oppressive circumstance and having to figure it out on your own. And like the feeling of ownership that comes along with that in Discovery, where you figure out which way east is, and just before the sun goes down or something, and like a giant arrow interface or something didn't tell you that information, you figured it out. That's pretty cool.
It really is.
That's really valuable.
It's something I traditionally associate with single player games. Like a game like Stalker, or I mean, to a lesser degree, something like an Elder Scrolls game or whatever. I mean, those games give you a lot of information right off the bat, but that general feeling of discovery is something that traditionally I've always associated with single player games, because multiplayer games, again, traditionally have so much been about explicit goals or rounds or the end of a game, or they're an MMO, which is really functional and loop based.
Right. The quest structure is built to, it will point you east when it wants you to point.
Yeah, it's built for efficiency.
Yeah,
exactly. Actually, I want to branch off a bit if you guys didn't have any more to say about that, because when we were talking about guys like Notch and Dean Rocket Hall, who are becoming really well known with their games before they're really done, before they've hit like version 1.0, I wonder. So I think that's really awesome in the case of games like that, but I'm actually really nervous about Greenlight.
It's so funny. I just wrote down what you're about to say. That's amazing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, exactly.
This is why we do a podcast together. Wow. We've got that.
No, Garen, go on, because we were kind of having this talk this weekend casually.
Yeah. There's something that I think is a little weird about a service like Greenlight, which is intended to be democratizing and to open up forms of major form distribution to anybody. It seems so heavily biased towards that kind of experience, which I'm really not crazy about. Like the idea that for your game to have a chance of being on Steam, it has to have apparently what seems to be a pretty high level of awareness relative to the hundreds and hundreds of other games that are currently on Greenlight, able to be voted up. And if you are making a game like Amnesia or something, where you absolutely would not want to share any of that game until you absolutely had to, because a huge part of that game is maintaining as much surprise as you possibly can for the player. It seems like you're just at a straight up disadvantage almost no matter what. Yeah. Like if those guys didn't already have a name, they could make a game that is easily, clearly, I mean, obviously, completely Steam worthy. And if someone in developer relations at Valve just let it up and build and play it, which is the traditional method, it would be clear without a doubt this game is worth being on Steam, obviously. And I wonder what you guys think about that, because I feel like a team like that, their chances are just a little bit sabotaged, or they have to probably market their game in a way that is not how they would want to at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's like, I completely agree with you. I mean, I think, Amnesia is sort of the example that we were talking about this weekend. And the thing is, it's so much about a game where you are holding back a lot of the story and holding back a lot of the creative for the consumption of it. Like maybe you put out a trailer, but you want that trailer to be sort of highlight maybe an art style or like something
enigmatic about the specificity.
Was exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, you want to be able to, so much of that type of experience. And very like this, the game Steve is working on is a great example.
Absolutely,
yeah. Which is a very like.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see what he has to do for that game.
Yeah, you want to be able to control. You want to be able to dole out those breadcrumbs. You want to be able to okay, we're going to release these screenshots. We're going to put out this trailer. We're going to say this about the game. We're going to, you want to. Okay, we're going to make these people play it and see if they, like however you want to soft launch an indie game. We want to sort of get people such as yourself, Evan, to evangelize it in its pre-release phase. To 30 Flights of Loving is a great example. The trailer, what the what? How would 30 Flights of Loving, if it wasn't a Blendo game, if it was just a weird thing, which is
even
exactly
as a Blendo
what it is.
game, honestly, that guy, again, he's also not a household name. You know, I mean, it's...
Like, how does that, where does that land?
I mean, I feel like we got in on, like, just before the, sort of calm before the storm, we got that game up on Steam, because we weren't sure if we were going to end up on Steam or not, and it was, because someone at Valve played it and actually responded to the email where the build was sent in, and they said, "This is great. We would love to have this on Steam." But it would be very difficult to pitch that game to a public in a way that, one, is convincing that thousands of people will need to all want to pre-approve it.
Do you want to spend $5 for this 13-minute narrative experience?
Right.
What is the first comment on the Greenlight page? 13 minutes. What the fuck?
Yeah. But even saying even the amount of information you have to give someone for them to know it's 13 minutes means you're probably spoiling a lot of
absolutely.
A lot of the awesome experience of playing that game, which is more than anything. Like, that game, probably more than any game I've played in like a year or more, is about nothing more than the surprise of the first. I mean, there's a lot of depth once you play it a few times in terms of what's going on narratively, but like
just having that stuff wash over you in that first playthrough.
I mean, that's one of those things. I'll never forget the first time I played 30 Flights of Loving. Like, I'll never forget it. With that feeling of like, what the what?
Yeah.
And the what the what?
Even the first time we played it, which was a broken ass dev build, it was like just that like the fundamental concept of the game was enough to be shocking.
Right.
It was really surprising.
And the thing is the thing that was so enjoyable about it for us is we were in such a unique, like, never going to happen for most people situation where we played this dev build and said, this is going to be something really special.
Yeah.
I can't wait till it's done and we get to show it to the masses. We get to show it to the world. Like, gosh, when Brendan gets this thing done, amazing. And then we just kind of got excited about its possibility, right? And this is the thing that drives me fucking crazy about Greenlight is that experience is then now completely shared with everybody. So it's all like it's going to grow up in a very expected way. So when people play, because that's what they would say. Like, to your point, you said, "Oh, the first time you played that really rough build, you knew it was something special and it had to be made." Great. Like, if I imagine the line from Greenlight is, "So put that build up with the Greenlight submission and people will play it and be really into it." It's like,
exactly
right. Yeah. So then you're just robbing people of that coming at it from nothing. Like, that was also part of my emotional experience when I first played the really rough build was, I wish I was a stranger.
Yeah.
I wish I was just coming to me
and
with a bow on top.
You can see that, like, there's Let's Plays of that game on YouTube, which I started looking up because Brendan mentioned them to me.
Oh, he linked to the. Oh no, I did. Sorry, what's his name?
Sorry, I got myself confused with Brendan.
Oh, maybe he did. What's his name? Total Biscuit, who does a lot of those.
Oh yeah, that wasn't the one I'm thinking of. But I mean like Let's Plays from just dudes on the internet, just people with like 40 views on their YouTube channel. And a couple of them were aware of it through Idle Thumbs, but like I saw one, for example, and I'm sure there were several like this, where this guy was just like, all right, I literally have no idea what this is. I saw this game on Steam for $5. I don't know anything about the guy who made it. I don't know anything about this thing. Whatever, $5, why not? And he played it, and it was crazy watching him play through it and have all of those surprised experiences in real time as he was having them, knowing nothing about it. He knew nothing about the game at all, because all he did was click a link and buy it completely done. If that game was on Greenlight right now and he had encountered it by just clicking through a Greenlight page, boo. Like, that just seems way lamer.
Also,
that guy could still easily never go to Greenlight or find it.
Right.
Of course he could. That's absolutely true.
But the thing is, the people who are going to be greenlighting this game are the people who are going to appreciate that experience
Those are the
most.
Enthusiastic people who are most interested in...
Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst of all things.
I don't know what's the worst of all things, but I'm not crazy about it.
I think it'll be interesting to see if people figure out a way... Well, I mean, whether this is positive or negative, I wouldn't try to say, although my instinct is negative. But if people are just going to find what works on Greenlight that isn't deploy everything. I mean, the same way
of course.
Over the existence of Kickstarter, what a successful Kickstarter video is has sort of congealed into a pretty specific what you show, what you don't show, what you tell, what you don't tell, how much information you give, sort of what you present. And I imagine that Greenlight is going to eventually sort of boil down to a specific thing that is probably not upload your dev build of a 15-minute game.
You're completely right, and I agree. But I still think there are a lot of kinds of games that if the person making them doesn't need to resort to something like Kickstarter to get it made, they shouldn't have to do a Kickstarter-like thing to get it on Steam. Like, if traditionally, an actual human could have just approved it.
Yeah, there's going to be a gross, weird bias that would show up, I imagine.
Yeah.
Well, the other question is, like, how well does an indie game maker also need to be an indie game marketer now?
Right.
And I mean, maybe if you look at it from the flip side.
For most indie games, regardless of Steam Greenlight, that's true. It just means a very different thing than what it's going to mean right now.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm totally fine with... So Valve right now, well, not now anymore, actually, but they used to have just a more general policy, which was sometimes you'd send them a thing to their dev relations team, and they would say, well, it's possibly interesting, but we want to see a little more evidence that people are into this. And like, fine, then you can go sell it through your own website, do whatever, like as a finished, do whatever you need to as a finished game, not having to like sell your idea. And then if Valve sees evidence of it being a worthwhile thing, then they'll put it on Steam. That seems to me totally fine. What I'm not crazy about is Greenlight, where you have to like build a whole campaign that is entirely targeted around one marketplace to just as this whole thing you've got to manage and like attract votes for and this and that. It just seems really like a weird sidetrack.
Do you know Dave Gilbert, of Wadjet Eye Games? He makes like reasonably well known amongst sort of the indie game community PC adventure games. They're pretty lo-fi, but they've got a pretty dedicated following, and like he's been able to be self-employed doing that full time for like 5 years.
Yeah.
He couldn't get on Steam for 4.5 of those years because they just said your stuff looks too lo-fi, it looks too retro, we don't care, whatever. And then one game that he published from another developer got into the IGF, and I think that Steam, if you're in the IGF, you're very easily received into Steam because they having IGF stuff there around IGF time, and that was the only way I think that guy was ever able to get an in. Despite the fact that he had a big community, he'd been written up on Rock, Paper, Shotgun over and over again, he'd been interviewed, but just because someone at Steam didn't like the aesthetic or the genre of adventure games that look like old adventure games, nothing happened. So that when as far as Greenlight goes, I'm generally not excited by it. Like I would much prefer that a person existed, and like the way that Steam's been doing it for a long time, I personally generally like. But also, I always think of that dude who's been a successful indie game maker for the good part of a decade, who has a loyal fan base, who always ask for the games to be on Steam, and like they just weren't, and they weren't, and they weren't, and they weren't, and they weren't. But if Greenlight had existed 2 or 3 years ago, he would have probably been on Steam 2 or 3 years ago because he had a moderate-sized fan base, but I'm sure enough to put that game up over the hump to get in. But that just wasn't working with a human filter.
Right, and that's a really good point, and that's absolutely. I completely agree with you, as that has been a huge failing of Steam's submission process for years, and you're totally correct. And we've probably even talked about that on Idle Thumbs before, and it is very frustrating. How I wish they would have solved that, because they're Valve and I know they can afford to, is just hire an actual dev relations team with an interesting breadth of taste and willingness to check out interesting things. I feel like if this was like GOG or a really small thing like Green Man or whatever, Greenhouse or whatever, God, like Desura, something like that, I feel like I would be a lot less bothered by the Greenlight approach. But I feel like because Valve is a company that if they wanted to, they could easily afford to maintain a more curated selection process that I think could actually benefit small risky developers more than this could. It bums me out that they're not doing that.
I mean, Valve gets interested in certain ideas, and one of them right now is automation. You can see this. You can see this evolve from Team Fortress 2 and all of its community content from other games, where they don't really have a TF2 dev team. It's pretty skeleton at this point because all their users are generating content. They're generating maps and they're generating items, and that keeps the game going. They do these special events where they roll out like sort of big flagship pieces of content, like Man vs. Machine mode and whatnot. But beyond that, it's really driven by the community. And the problem that Greenlight is solving from Valve's perspective, I think, is its marketing, because these indie, they've been releasing indie games for 4 or 5 years now on Steam, a considerable quantity of them, and lately there have just been tons of them, honestly, over the past couple of years, and they get lost in the shuffle so quickly, partly because of like navigation flaws in Steam, and it's hard to find things, or it's hard to discover things, I guess I should say. That's kind of the key word here. So by giving a platform to indie developers where they have to rally support, where their supporters have to rally support and create videos and build a campaign, when that game's ready to go to market, they have something that's already popular and ready to spread further. And that's the case for a lot of indie games, I think, honestly. I mean, like, stuff like, I don't know, the PC version of the Ticket to Ride board game released on Steam like a month ago. Like, that's, like, how are you going to find that on Steam if you want to play that? I don't know. I mean, that's not something that you stumble into in the current version of Steam. You know what I'm saying?
I guess. I feel like discoverability on Steam is better for me than on most digital platforms.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think discoverability on most digital platforms is like painfully bad.
Oh, it is. I think Steam is better than most of them.
Steam is the winner of a race of like unimpressive sprinters. You know what I mean? Like,
sure. Yeah, but what you're describing though is still just external. Like, what would Greenlight do to make the Ticket to Ride PC version more discoverable on Steam? Or are you just saying it would make it more externally visible because they would have a trailer and all this stuff?
Yeah, I guess.
I think my concern with all of this is like, I actually think in general having a good automation-based infrastructure for this much content makes a ton of sense. Like, I fully agree with that. But the concern that I have with it is I think that when you have an automated system like that, you as the human beings who work at the provider of the automated system have a historical tendency to become increasingly disconnected from those who are putting the content into that automated system. Like, if an issue ever comes up with anything on the iTunes App Store, good fucking luck. And like, you hear the same thing, like anyone who tries to do tech support through Google, developer relations through Google, like anything where it's like,
you host a podcast on the iTunes Store.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think that it has the tendency to create a really, really wide divide between those who are already effectively, whatever industry in question is equivalent of AAA developers are, and then the entire rest of the world. Like, it creates a weird 1%, 99% issue where, like, if you've got a rep at Steam, you're already bypassing that shit, so it's not an issue. And if you don't, in the past, you probably still were able to pound down the door of a rep who would at least say, I'm sorry, we don't give a shit about your game. Whereas now, no matter who you are, unless you're effectively, I was going to say EA as an example, but say Activision.
Right, any major publisher.
Yeah, or whatever. I hope, like, I guess the optimistic version of this is, it seems like right now out of the gate, Steam is making changes and adapting to the demands of what's going on with Greenlight, but I hope that extends out to thinking about the fact that they may need to continue to employ humans in this process, maybe even increasingly aggressively. Like, even if they have this amazing infrastructure, if they don't have the human element inside of it, it's going to fall apart, because you can trust a system to do a lot of this stuff, but the places where things fall through the cracks are the places that eventually flip people out and drive them away. And like, it seems like a lot of automated systems fail in that regard. And also, that's I don't know. I think of Valve as, well, in the 90s, I thought of Valve as this weird monolithic silent entity. But in the last 10 years, Valve has done a fantastic job of becoming the people of Valve. Like, we're all the best at this we can possibly be. We're the pinnacle of the craft of whatever it is that we're doing. But with Greenlight, and also weirdly with the new community stuff they've been putting out on Steam, it feels like they're leading, not following. And it's really, like, I'm worried because I feel like
following, not leading?
They're following, not leading. Sorry. Yes, they are following. I fear that they're following, not leading. Like, I worry that I'm going to see Valve fall into pitfalls that anyone whose primary industry is the things they're getting into, like online community or like systems-based developer relations. Like, these pitfalls
have crowdsourcing.
But it's things that have occurred in the past, not inside of games, and I'm worried that, like, Valve is building
the App Store, for example.
Sure, but like game developers don't usually build them. Some of them have to interact with them. I mean, like, there are companies whose job it is to create these big pieces of infrastructure, and we've seen Google, Amazon, Apple.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Microsoft. I guess Microsoft is the one place where maybe that line has been crossed internally before, but I see Valve doing it. And I wonder, like, Valve has best in breed everything on the game dev side. And Steam has always felt like it existed because it did, and then they sort of shored it up. And I was hoping that when they started announcing all these new initiatives, that I was just going to have my face ripped off by how they're solving all of some other industries' problems. But instead, I'm concerned that they're bringing other industries' problems into ours, and that's we'll see. But like, the optimist in me hopes that they're observing this and going, where did other people fuck this up? But the pessimist / realist in me is going, ugh.
The fact that they launched it and then course corrected with the feed like the next day,
right.
that's not very.
No,
Yeah.
That was messy. I mean,
I don't know how you
What do you
know you're going to
think
get
about that,
flooded.
Evan?
Yeah.
well, it speaks to what Jake was saying, that they're not even willing to put a person between them and the system, between game developers in the system or griefers in the system.
Oh, they'll put Ben Franklin in between.
It is for charity. I guess they're saying it goes to Child's Play or something.
Yeah, which is
I guess
great.
that makes sense. But they're not even willing to sort of filter these initial, is this a game or not?
right.
Yeah. Wow.
It's tough because I feel like, we don't need to beat this to death because I'll try to make my point without recounting anything we've already said, because I think everybody's made really I agree with everything that's been said. I don't know. And I think the thing that maybe we leap at, because we are, I feel like at least with the three of us in Idle Thumbs, are so into the power of the curatorial of going out and saying, hey, look, I went and mined this hill and I came back with this gem. It's totally worth your time. Go. And sort of what that means from a person-to-person interaction standpoint, and how that's a really powerful thing in the world of everybody can be a filmmaker and everybody can be this and everybody can be that and everything's crowdsourced. And it's troubling that that's not part of the equation at all, because I think they actually had some of the systems in place to do that. When I see game recommends, the game recommend system that they have from people on your list is spectacular. I love that when somebody just writes 3 paragraphs about something. It's they took the time to put all that on Steam about a thing that I would have never looked at. I look at that thing, and so that system is already built in there. And I don't know how they couldn't have taken that. Maybe they're trying to with the community stuff. They're failing. I think it's not working. I don't know. That's the community pages are not working for me, at least.
No,
it's troubling, and especially when you're the when you have 5 million daily users and 50 million active users. That you don't at one point say we're rolling out this giant initiative. If we change something, if we impact the sort of the ecosystem of how games can be released, it's going to impact the industry. And I feel like sometimes Valve puts things out, especially on Steam, being whatever, we'll just try it and see how it works. But
well, and the frustrating thing is it's not going to affect as Jake sort of implies, it's not going to affect the big companies in the industry.
No, but where do you draw that line?
It's it only can affect the smaller guys who are the ones who can least afford to have big weird constraints,
right?
Put
but also the ones that are going to figure out where we're headed,
right?
Nobody's looking towards Activision to make the game of the future.
No, certainly not now.
Yeah. Anyway, video games.
I was going to say we should take a break, but since we're talking about Steam, do we want to talk about the big picture mode for half a second?
This is a thing that I'm much happier about.
It's really nice.
Yeah,
big,
cool.
Well done.
Yeah, that just came out
Sorry,
a few hours.
Valve, we just
yeah, they actually just turned off the podcast. Fuck Idle Thumbs. Never fucking listen to that again.
no, come back.
I have super strong feelings about all of the community and Greenlight stuff that Valve's doing, but I still also I feel like there is some sort of thought behind it, and I feel like I have to be hopeful because what I'm seeing right now is I'm personally finding frustrating.
I find your optimism infectious.
I don't know if optimism is hoping things will be good. I think it's believing
your
they'll be good.
Full of hopefulness.
Well, yeah, that's true. I guess I am hopeful, and I would like to soon be optimistic.
Upgrade.
But big picture mode, I'm actually really
It's also
into.
called Big Picture Mode.
Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah, I know. It's a hilarious name. It's fucking good. I don't know.
That's,
I like it a lot.
that just came out today, but the beta just was launched today. It'll be out for a couple days by the time this episode's out. But it's Valve's new interface for Steam they've been talking about or hinting at for years. Yeah. But it's for basically for browsing your Steam library and the Steam community through a television interface or just a full screen interface using a gamepad.
Feels a lot like Plex.
You can use your mouse
It feels
as
like Plex, which also, I mean, it feels like any console interface that you've ever used.
Yeah.
Like
It's a pretty standard mode for that kind of thing.
it's modeled. It seems like it's most closely modeled on the Xbox 360 interface, although I find it way less cumbersome than the Xbox 360
well, it's not
interface.
full of Axe body spray ads and shit. So that's
Gosh, I hate ads presented like content. I
I
hate
do
ads.
too.
Oh
It's
God.
it's the worst.
Oh, it's so sad. Sorry. Go on.
It's such a sadness.
Oh, so I was trying Axe body spray.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
Oh, from
just-
Steam, the new
yeah.
beta.
Oh, yeah.
I signed up for this.
Well, I heard that
I
Valve's getting into hardware, and it turns out that what they're doing, it's really PC centric though. Like it fits in like a large bay on a standard PC case. Like a lot of people, they've noticed that optical drives. That in the Steam hardware survey, they've noticed that fewer and fewer people have optical drives. So they figured, I'll use that for
these
an
drive
Axe
bays
body display.
available.
Well, they also noticed that PC gamers, unfortunately, stereotypically smell. So. We were just at PAX last week. Whatever. Sorry, PAX dudes. It's kind of stinky in there sometimes. That's
God, if only they'd gotten this beta out in time for the BYOC
if only
at PAX.
the big picture mode with the new Valve box, which it turned out was just a SATA-based Axe body spray deployer, had been released. I wasn't expecting that twist from.
Oh man.
Yeah, Gabe said we're not building a Steam box, but what he did not say was. We're not building an Axe body spray deployer that uses the serial ATA interface.
What do you guys think about the handshake mechanism they have in there that allows you to only use the Axe body spray deployer with Steam Big Picture mode?
It was
but not with competing.
You won't find this on GOG.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, because that's a total software thing. They could easily support an open standard.
Well, GOG only releases classic packaging Old Spice sticks.
That's true.
What are we talking about? Big picture mode is
Probably
real.
games.
On the GOG Menon sponsorship. Yeah. As well. Partner.
Oh man, GOG Menon is a weird, gross combination of
GOG
syllables.
Menon Incorporated.
That merger happened. Big picture mode is cool.
It's really great.
Yeah,
it
it's nice.
does a lot
I
of.
just don't. The problem is I don't see myself using it.
Exactly. I was going to ask. Yeah. It's cool, but are you just fascinated by it, or are you actually going to?
Well, are you guys saying you're not going to use it because you don't want to hook your TV up to a computer, or you're not? I mean, your computer
Here's
up
the
to
thing,
TV,
though.
or because
In the living room in which Sean and I live, we don't live in.
We live in a living room together.
The living room,
The house that we cohabitate in.
has
That's
a
noble.
living room.
It's not getting better.
There's a living room in my house.
We are equidistant from.
It has a Mac Mini plugged into it, which uses Lion like OS 10 full screen mode. We switch between apps. We have there's a media player on there. There's a full screen web browser that's always running. I could easily see the Mac version of Steam running in that mode just for loading up the few games that we ever play on that thing, which are infrequent. But
Torchlight 2 is going to be on Mac, right?
Believe so.
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
But just-
Maybe that's where I'll play it.
But what I was asking
let
though,
you
I
know.
mean, were you saying it's not applicable to you because you wouldn't ever hook up a PC to your television, or because if you did, you still wouldn't use this mode?
No, it's because it would take a re-engineering of my personal behaviors and lifestyle that I'm not quite willing
But,
to do.
I know
Maybe when I move and set up a new thing,
But
it's am I going to
Steve
do that?
Gaynor, who obviously is not here right now, but has been on Idle Thumbs many times, his home setup is his gaming PC is plugged into his living room computer. Yes.
That used to be for me as well
really?
when I lived in San Francisco
Yeah.
before.
How
I did
do
the
you
same
do
thing.
that?
What do you mean?
Like,
mean,
I just like
where do you put the mouse
I have
and
a
the keyboard?
hard time.
Steve has a lap board.
He's
Yeah.
got a lap board, but man, I couldn't play Dota on that thing.
Steve had a bigger
Steve
lap
and
board
I
that had a
played
mouse.
Far Cry 2 that way. We beat Far Cry
Really?
2 together, sitting on Steve's couch with a mouse and keyboard. Cussing
adorable.
Is it comfortable?
It was adorable. It was a blast. It was awesome.
Oh man. Maybe I want that experience now.
I feel like I would
Yeah,
have
it was the
built
best.
and I can have it with bigger picture.
It was
mode.
really cool. It was nice when I haven't recently because I moved across the country twice and blah, blah, blah. I'm not really set up yet again. But when I lived in San Francisco before, my computer was just always hooked up to my TV.
Yeah.
And it was great because everything I ever needed to do with a screen, like other than my phone, I could do on that one device. I could watch Netflix, I could watch Hulu, I could play all my games.
That's why I
that
like
was
the
when
Mac
I
Mini,
that was
yeah.
when I that was basically actually when I started just not using consoles anymore pretty much. Like
Yeah, that's
I
right.
realized just everything was just there.
This
Like, it was-
conversation is making flames appear behind Gabe Newell as he rubs his hands together like Mr. Burns. Like, that experience of playing PC games on my TV made me not buy consoles anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, it was great. Like, there was nothing.
Brought to you by Axe and Steam.
Like, I didn't miss anything because I didn't have to use that stupid, ad festered dashboard and
it's so bad.
$60 retail games. Like, it was. I really liked it. I mean, I still at this point don't really play console games anymore. But that was what started me on that, and only a big part of it was also just philosophically only needing one plastic big electronics box in my entire apartment. Like that was amazing. Like that was, as a gamer, we're so accustomed to having like 6 of these goddamn things, like or whatever, however many.
It's a used car lot underneath.
It's funny. I feel like Valve is doing something right with the big picture thing, because Sean, when you first loaded it up, you're like, or we said, oh, let's go to the store. I haven't looked at that, and then you went, did they do the thing Microsoft? Ugh, oh, they did. It's totally like the Xbox. But then the immediate thing that I saw you do after that silently was browse 20 games.
Yeah, I know. I looked at a lot of games.
Which is a thing that no one fucking does on the Xbox dashboard as it currently stands.
There still is. Xbox Live Arcade developer will tell you.
I'm sure they have data on this, but it's internal. But I'm really curious as to what the shelf space is on big picture versus not. Digital shelf space.
It seems like it's smaller, but
maybe it's deceptively the same size.
That's the thing, because what everyone does when everyone talks about Steam's catalog and going deep, I think most people who actually say that are talking about clicking through the 5 tabs on the homepage that are top 10, recent added, best sellers, under $5, and those are all the same tabs and the same number of games in big picture mode, and then there's a search. Yeah. So it secretly might be identical.
No, I saw you see me dive. Like, he's going to bring that up. Yep. I better start acting like it's clunky.
Well, and speaking of earlier, the discoverability on Steam, that's one of the things that I love about Steam is that, and especially with the pace of I have no idea like how this will be affected by Greenlight. I guess it depends how many games are able to get through the Greenlight barrier. But one of the things I love about Steam is that generally speaking, like a single digit number of games come out per week. Which means if you just check up on Steam once a week and you browse through those 5 tabs, which takes like 30 seconds to go through new releases, coming soon, under 10, under 5, like top sellers.
Sale or whatever,
in the specials, Like you can see an amazing variety of games in a relatively low amount of time, including stuff that's new, including stuff that's been out for a while.
Evan, it sounded like you didn't agree with this.
Oh, no. I mean, that wasn't always the case. That was the case when they eliminated DLC sharing that space.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was a good move. That was a great move.
Thank God.
Yeah. When it wasn't just 400 Railworks trains.
Yes.
Like everything. And that's something that there is nothing remotely like that on Xbox Live. I mean, like you would never.
It's
like
nested as hell.
You get your list from A to Z, which is just the most meaningless possible.
Well, I feel so bad we're never taking a break. No, I feel really bad for Nels, who works at Clay, because
we should talk about that game.
Mark of the Ninja is really hard to find on the Xbox
as a ninja game. It was appropriate.
Didn't see that on Twitter.
Nels Anderson's
you're totally feasting right now. Look at him.
I was going to actually talk about that game, but we're gonna make noises, I guess.
We're going to seg into talking about that game.
Jake Rodkin.
I wanted to seriously discuss a video game which I have played on the Idle Thumbs podcast.
I
know. Jake just grew his walrus mustache again instantly.
We're here to discuss. We're doing these serious book podcasts now, and it just makes me want to talk about the content at hand.
It turned you into a real stickler for tone.
I don't give a shit what we talk about. I should just start armpit farting into the microphone right now. I actually don't know how to armpit fart. I've never mastered that skill.
Really?
Yeah.
Can we teach you?
Dude, I went to
this room's already warm enough. We're not going to armpit fart in here.
I grew up with a kid who could do it behind his knees.
No.
He had to lay on his back and flap his legs. Logan Christie, if you're out there.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's an ancient technique.
Hands on the knees, legs flapping like I don't even know. Whatever my hands are doing.
Watch this kid's legs flap around and
then hear fart sounds.
You're in the 5th grade.
Here's
what else
spoiler.
Do you do?
He was actually just using that as an excuse to get out some stationary crop dust, like some jumping jack farts.
Hear that? It's my knees.
Have we moved away from... Oh, go ahead. You were going to talk about farts more?
Poor Nels, by the way.
Don't let us interrupt you.
Nels! Oh, he listens to the cast.
Anyway, we'll talk about Mark the Ninja some other time.
Knee farts.
No, what were you going to say about farts, Evan?
So were you speculating that it was a cover system, basically? Like a sort of a screen for actual farts?
Yes.
That was the speculation.
That's incredible. I mean, that's an incredibly advanced tactic for...
guys, check it out. I can totally armpit fart with my knees. Oh, thank God. Oh, God.
His knees were just that big. Tax fight. Yeah.
You guys happy now? Look where I brought us.
You end around us, by the way.
I know. Let's be serious.
We're not talking seriously. Farts.
Anyway, what if the guy was farting to cover up that he was farting?
Jake's gonna go home. Dear diary, I pulled my greatest trick tonight. All I wanted to do was talk about farts for 45 minutes, and I finally got them by saying I wanted to do the opposite.
To be indignant as well.
I told
it was my favorite Idle
Thumbs. Best episode. Mark of the Ninja.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good video game.
The ninja's name is Mark.
Well, I haven't actually played it since
in
9 months, but...
Yeah.
We played it a week ago.
We played through, I mean, everyone else in the world who plays Xbox Live games or who plays Sweet Ninja games has played this already, but Sean and I played through
the first 15 minutes.
Yeah,
or so.
the first like
PAX
level, I guess, which was their PAX demo.
Took me a long time. I'm bad at games like this.
So the first 15 minutes took you a long time. What does that mean? It took you 15 minutes.
I don't know if it was the first 15
It
minutes.
seemed like it probably should have been less than 15 minutes.
It is
of
probably the
content.
first 5 minutes for a 14-year-old who knows how video games are played.
But Clay previously made the two Shank games, which are straight 2D, like
Brawlers.
I guess like Double Dragon style.
And Eats.
Yeah, I never played Eats.
I didn't play Shank, but I did play Eats, and I liked it a lot.
Is Eats another 2D game like that, or
Eats is like a puzzle platform thing. Yeah.
Mark of the Ninja, I think, more clearly draws from Shank.
Oh, for sure.
In just that you're except.
Not killing dudes.
Yeah, I mean, Shank is all about just like
The brawler.
Yeah, brawl with dudes, kill them in crazy ways. Like Clay
Knife
Studios, Knife of Face. Clay is very animation focused. Like they have a lot of what seem to be Cartoon Network vintage or style animators. So that means
I think they have a few guys who actually come from Cartoon Network.
They're world class. Those guys.
Their character animation is just fantastic. It's ridiculous looking. And Shank seemed like it was all about. Shank seems maybe like the style came first. Like it was. What if you're a dude who beats up a bunch of dudes? Because that would look sick when we animate it.
You shank them.
Yeah, you shank the shit out of them. But Mark of the Ninja has that same level of fidelity that Shank has, where it just feels very much like a 2D animated cartoon, but it's all about stealth gameplay. And the thing that I thought was, like, you play as a ninja who is sneaking around trying to accomplish a goal, like rescuing a person over the course of a map that has multiple paths. You sneak through vents, wait for a guard to come by, pull him in, and kill them silently, or you drop onto a guy from the rafters and that sort of thing. The thing that surprised me about it that I wasn't expecting was that it's really visually open with its systems. Like footsteps are not just sound effects, nor is there a radar, but like when guys make footsteps or when your guy makes them, they actually just emit visual pulses out into the world. Like the game uses it when characters are in darkness, they just get sort of a shader, which I don't know if it's a shader because it's in 2D, but they get some sort of effect that just draws their outline, but their outline is really heavy. They don't disappear into shadow.
Right. Well, their outline kind of stays in the last place you knew they were, which is really cool.
Well, there's shadows, but there's also like your character has effectively a fog of war. So like when you walk past walls, you see almost as if you're casting a light where it's sort of the shadow of your perception turns that part of the world into black and white and out of focus. And when guards disappear into that, they sort of leave one last ping and go away. So I last saw a guy there.
The footsteps and the line of sight thing is almost simulating like
it's simulating
the
perception
senses, but just in a physical way.
But it does that perfect thing where it goes outside of the sense, but makes you feel like it would feel.
Yep,
or you imagine.
And this is actually
the best part of video games.
I'm going to jump way back to the PC Gamer panel that you were on, and Dean Rocket guy, last name.
Hall.
Guy.
Dean Rocket Hall.
He's French.
One thing that he said about when someone asked about what he wanted to do with DayZ in the future is he said, I want to make DayZ more immersive by taking out the HUD. And I sat there and I was like clawing at my chair. I wanted to jump up because as that goes I used to actually think that a lot. I used to really be into
Idle Thumbs used to be all about that.
Also, just like I think growing up playing adventure games where the world is your only point of interaction with the system other than what your character has in your pockets, like that was the holy grail of at least like the adventure game space. That was like Tim Schafer was all about that with Grim Fandango. Like a lot of Telltale's games don't have any UI in them. And like that was always sort of my thing. Like immersive sim is best, or like cinematic adventure is best.
Immersive sim because those games are all about.
No, but sorry, either one, but like immersive simulation in a space, like feeling like you're in a space is not. Yeah, immersive sim is as a genre. You're right, but sorry, like that notion of. If we can cut the UI out and it's just all what you, more. If what you perceive is what you see.
Yeah. Like Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official video game of the movie, was all about that.
When Dean Hall said that in that panel, I thought to myself, I don't want to talk about Peter Jackson. But you play as a T-Rex in that, so it's sick.
No, I was.
Or you play as King Kong himself.
No. I don't care about Peter Jackson. I just remember when that game was coming out.
That was a big deal.
People made a big deal because that was a Michel Ancel game.
Oh, right.
And there was like I'm pretty sure it was, and like. He was always talking about how his whole goal of this was to have a HUD-less game where you just experience the things.
Yeah,
I wasn't joking. I was bringing it up because it seemed actually like what you're talking about.
It seemed crazy to me in the context of DayZ because DayZ, and again, this is coming from a person who's never played it and has only watched little bits of it. DayZ wants to replicate the full human experience, but all you have is audio and video. Mm-hmm. So not being like,
you don't have a sense of hunger.
Right, just
Right.
as a
You can't feel how many bullets you have in your hand about.
Yeah, as a person, you know how heavy is this clip? How does my stomach feel? My leg is mangled. But like, you can't convey that stuff in a game without
the terrible future of games.
Right. Either we're going to need to strap a bunch of shit onto a dude, the player, or you need to show that stuff. And like, people try to simulate that stuff. Like, I mean, you can in first person have the camera get wobbly, or you can up the exposure, or you can sort of put the red like bloodlust cam on the side, some of which we've done in games in the past, or present.
It's just substitute for UI though, right?
Right,
I mean,
but
it's all just the
I
same.
feel like at the same time,
Bloodlust, by the way. Sorry.
it is that bloodlust
good.
cam, but like at a certain point, it becomes easier as a human to internalize, to just map. Like, your eye looks at the lower left corner to know how your legs are doing.
Yeah,
like, just make
right.
peace with that, because that eventually just becomes invisible to people. Like, your brain just
Absolutely.
develops a blind spot to that. So seeing, like, Mark of the Ninja, this game is beautiful. Like, beautiful, beautiful 2D game. And, like, all of the character animation and stuff is... you feel it really, really kinetically. But at the same time... it's got all these things popping up all over the place. Like, the world is changing colors and fading in and out, and there's lines coming all over the place. And it was so good to see what is clearly a really art-heavy game and an art-heavy team being uncompromising with, like, these systems are just going to be on top of all of it.
And I think we should, because most people listening probably don't know, I mean, we should call out why that probably is. And I think a big reason for that is our buddy Nels Anderson, who works at Clay and was the design lead. I don't know what his official role is, but he was the lead designer on that game. And I'm sure that as a designer, he's relatively new to Clay. He's been there, what, a year or two?
2 years.
Yeah.
But
he brought that sensibility to that game. And
it was cool playing through that at PAX, and like, I mean, all of those things are also really artfully done. Like, the little pings that come out of the feet and stuff are also, they still have a little hand brushed look to them and stuff. But like, as a whole, just even aesthetically, I thought it was interesting to see all the weird shit going on. But after a while, it does just become invisible to your brain, and you just it conveys the sensory inputs that your main character has in a really cool way. I don't know. Mark of the Ninja was really sweet.
You're talking about feedback, basically,
Yes.
right? I mean, and how, I mean, like, and it's sort of been a classic aspect of some games that, you know, you want a lot of output for your input, right? Like, small input, big output. I mean, take Peggle, right? I mean, you click once and you can get a rainbow and
Fireworks.
Ode to joy and fireworks, and, you know, you win. You take Call of Duty and one kill can be a guitar riff, 100 experience points, the guy actually dying and seeing that animation, sound effect of your weapons firing, you know, just this cascade of feedback. But yeah, that's not always the case, right? I mean, it's not always that more is more.
I thought that, I mean, Mark of the Ninja has a ton of stuff going on, but all of it's actually relevant, and you perceive it all really cleanly in a way that's like, Peggle, I mean, yes, people play Peggle because the amount of feedback you get is wild, but I thought it was cool in Mark of the Ninja.
Well, you're playing it for the feedback, essentially.
It's also, I think it's different than a lot of stealth games, which try, I mean, like a Deus Ex type thing. There's still like radars and stuff, but most of it is trying to be, what do you perceive coming out of the screen? What do you, the sound effects that your guy makes is all that you get. And like, did that guy see me is a big question. In Mark of the Ninja, there's no ambiguity about whether or not you're seen. Right.
Well, and I think those two games handle it in different ways that are each appropriate to the game at hand. Like, Mark of the Ninja is about this character who is supremely competent at just detecting these things. I mean, that's the point of a ninja, at least, especially like in sort of popular media. Whereas Deus Ex is a lot more about being a human. Well, it's not, I mean, you're super augmented, so you're at a clear advantage over most of your enemies, but you're supposed to be on somewhat more of a level playing field, just in terms of your ability to just get shot and return fire and like be behind cover and you know, be in an event and stuff. You're much more it's a little bit more of that kind of situations spiraling into things, whereas Mark of the Ninja is more about like maintaining supreme competence over your situation.
The feeling of the moments to me are actually kind of similar, though, which was weird, because just the feeling of like observing patterns observing behaviors from the shadows, then executing a thing, and often for me and for you, because I think it was our first time playing.
Things go wrong,
and you have to compromise and like jump into the shadows and hope the guy doesn't see you or whatever. But it was really cool to see those behaviors and those systems using, like what you were saying, Evan, using the language of console gaming or of casual stuff where the game is not afraid to pop shit up all over the place, but it's still like
it's just really elegantly implemented.
Yeah, it makes me hope though that because they're doing that stuff, they can attract people who usually would be put off by something like a Deus Ex, but still you'll be able to experience the feeling of sort of the colliding systems of a multipath stealth experience, but through the aesthetic of this weird cartoon thing that then is firing off bursts of color and light all over the place like a casual game does. It's neat. Yeah.
So, awesome. So I'm curious, because I haven't actually touched Mark and Ninja myself, but so I'm always curious how games that have like detection focus mechanics handle enemies noticing you. So how does it convey that? Because like, I mean, Metal Gear, for example, or other games do actually hear a voice clip. Yeah, that or like a sentry or guard will say something like, "Did I hear something?" or "What's that?" Like,
I don't actually remember.
No, there's some of that. It's a lot. It's similar.
There are guard barks, but I don't remember all the specifics. I just remember knowing that I was seen really easily, and I'm sure they have some lines that come up over their head or some sort of thing where the way that
there's
no
ambiguity
changes, or that you're like something lights up differently on the screen, but I don't remember what the details.
There's also like you can do the thing where like in Metal Gear where if you push them too hard, like they're like on red alert, and then you have to like go
you get the
time.
Okay.
And then your timer goes down.
Yeah.
So I mean it's very very traditional in that sense.
Yeah.
But the way that all that stuff is then represented to the player, given their aesthetic, is top notch. You guys should totally check that game out.
You know what's horrible? There are two things that are horrible. One, I think we're getting close to running out of time.
We're doing a non-break.
Two, I don't think we're going to have time for reader mail because we've all actually got to get going. Three, we are big shits because we didn't talk about the DayZ documents, which came to light.
Say we should do.
So maybe we should close on that. We should close because Chris, like 2 episodes ago, teased the DayZ documents. Some documents have some new shit has come to light.
I mean, it's like at this point, it's one of those things that,
and now we're like just talking about
outpaced by its hype. But like, there's two things. Honestly,
so your mind will be blown.
There's one. This will take 30 seconds. When we were talking about Greenlight, I meant to read this. I thought this was interesting. This was a forum post from Stark Fan on the Idle Thumbs forums. He's one of our community members, who's also an indie developer. And he said, "I really don't know whether Steam Greenlight is good for indie developers or not. We have our game Stained on Greenlight. We were about to send our final build to Steam last month, but then they stopped talking because of Greenlight. Our game looks polished. We have a demo available, but it's not getting any notice." So that was the game's called Stained, and it's on Greenlight. And that was seeing that post was one of the things that kind of informed my early opinion of Greenlight, especially seeing other posts to that effect. That's the kind of thing that worries me, or one of the sorts of things that worries me, in addition to the kind of more general philosophical points we were talking about earlier. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was interesting. Separately, we have we actually, in the game, DayZ, in the stream, if you remember, if you watched it, that is, Evan and I was playing at this point, swapping in for Sean, who played for most of it. We had been traipsing around with this fucking badass with a crazy rifle and a ghillie suit,
who chased us for a full 10 minutes.
Yeah, who just stalked us, basically.
Oh, God.
He was doing the thing that Evan talks about doing, where you survey.
I wanted you dead to be dead already.
We were on the receiving end of that. And we were just going through this world. We met up. I met up with Evan in the game as well. We were all three of us were together. And then, if you want to quickly, Evan, recap like what happened towards the end of the stream.
Yeah. So he first approached us when we were like breaching this factory. We're sort of, that was our goal in the middle of the map, and then we're going to make we stumbled into him as you described, and he's like, "Well, I didn't kill you, so what you want to do?"
Yeah. That was an amazing moment, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we decided to head northeast to this town called Berezino, which is sort of a larger town in Chernobyl, the world of DayZ and Arma 2. And we're scouting out, and he reports that he sees somebody as we're sort of at the outskirts of town.
Yeah. And
he's like, get down. We get under just some evergreen trees.
It was so tense. So the tension really in the room was like thick.
And, and I'm immediately just trying to get more information, like, okay, where do you see these guys? What direction, how many, what guns? Because that information determines what we're going to do.
Yeah. I'm basically not saying anything at this point, and like Evan's just like grilling this guy for as much information as he can possibly get. I'm
also,
like,
the tone of your voice changed. Like when you talked to that guy for the first time, it was so. It was watching it sitting in the room. The tone of your voice changed, and there was this sort of this hint of fear and but also calmness,
and
very
just
polite.
Sort of like,
Yeah. No, we're just having a good time here. Just like guys, like talking to the cops or something. It was amazing.
Like you're being mugged, maybe, kind of.
It's like, hey, we don't want any trouble. Just, it's me and my buddy. He showed me the game for the first time. Just, could you not point that gun at the back of my head? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Totally.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. So he reports that he sees some enemies, and I think he ends up telling us that there are like 3 of them or something. Okay, well, that's tough. So we try and egress. We run away southwest, I guess.
And we never, like from inside this office, never saw these enemies.
Oh, no, we did not. So we're trusting this guy completely at this point. We kind of had reason to. He hadn't killed us. I mean, hadn't given us any reason not to. So we're retreating like up this hill into some trees. In DayZ, when you're seeing or you're in danger, you just want to get in forest, basically. Eliminate visibility. And it's at this point, I think, that he says after a few minutes that he sees somebody else, or we hear a gunshot or something, right?
It was definitely a gunshot.
There's a gunshot
because I heard it moving left to right, and I was like, Chris is coming from the left, and he was just like on his belly spinning, sort of like kind of
yeah. And so we're in this sort of like.
Also, you can hear gunshots go left to right. Sorry, it's amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of fidelity. So like Chris actually and both of us, we position ourselves to sort of
rotate around the trees a bit.
Exactly, we're using the trees cover based on where we think it is, and we're sort of staying there, just trying to get eyes on whatever might be up the hill shooting at us. And there's one more shot that dings really close to Chris and like hits the tree above his head or something. And I'm like about to tell you to run or something. And this second shot comes in. I'm like 50 meters behind you, behind another tree.
Yeah.
And actually, I remember exactly how the shot traveled. It hit the ground first, ricocheted off the ground, hits you. If you go back and watch the stream.
Right in the side of his body, if I remember.
Yeah. And
it makes that bullet whap.
Totally.
Oh, God.
And
horrible.
And you go down. And I think you die instantly.
No, I don't.
No, you don't.
I start to like.
You start to bleed, right?
Yeah.
And then you probably run, or
And then I got hit again.
you took another hit.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm just.
You booked it.
Yeah, I had to make a decision because I mean, obviously, if you can see Chris, you can see me running up to Chris and trying to heal him or something. Unfortunately, so I hide. I threw a smoke grenade at some point to try and like get up there and do something, but I follow our ghillie suited friend down the hill and. Just
you guys left Chris to die though.
Kind of.
Yeah, that was probably gone by that point.
Yeah, he was gone.
Yeah.
Because at that point we
So when did you
switched
guys
to
when
like
did the stream
little
end?
embedded reporter
About
and
there.
like brought the camera over to Evan's actual computer.
Yeah, I brought the webcam over there and brought it over here to shoot his screen. But then that was about the end of it, except...
Well, what's crazy is in like the last 3 frames of the stream, and Sean and I did not notice this at the time.
No, we didn't know this was
This
DayZ.
is like
stream,
a found footage
This
movie.
is the Zapruder film. Yeah.
If you watch the stream, and it doesn't even show up sometimes because sometimes Twitch TV cuts it off right before the end just because of the way their player works. But like sometimes when you're watching it in the last third frame, as like someone's arm moves out of the way, you see that Evan's screen is full of the "You are dead" message. It's like, oh my god, it was a crazy.
Yeah, and so what happened was I typed this guy like, hey, we're gonna go. We didn't tell him that we were streaming. He didn't know we were streaming or anything.
Yeah.
Which is important, right?
That's important.
Yeah, we had to hide certain elements of the UI so people can't figure out what server we're on because we will see that you're streaming, find your server, and then
And in my headset, as soon as I finish typing this, he says, well, it's been nice playing with you. And he says something like, but I just want to let you know that you've been stream sniped. And then he shoots me point blank with his sniper rifle.
Oh my god!
So this guy tracked us for the purpose of like slow burn killing us or something, to sort of like.
So the guy who was killing Chris was with this guy secretly and wasn't talking to you.
I think they're actually different groups.
I think they were different groups.
So you were stream sniped by 2 separate crews.
The reason I think that is because
Really?
we then after the stream was over,
The documents.
we got a Twitch TV message from user Tango Wrangler. He says, "I'm sorry for the kill there, but it was fun tracking you guys down for a bit. We started he goes. It's too long to read this part, but he goes on for a while about how he found us on how he found what server we were on. Blah 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 blah.
How did he find it? Just can you give us a quick? It's impossible. Okay, whatever.
It's not worth it right now. Okay. I mean, it just has to do with like seeing things in your UI and like determining your name and stuff like that. Anyway, he says there were 4 of us actually hunting you down, each from different angles.
Oh my god!
Oh man, so you were clever girled. In fact, is what actually
telling your location based on your surroundings.
Clever girl.
Telling your location based on your surroundings didn't take more than a few minutes. A few of us were streaming on other PCs to track your location. There were 2 of us who wanted to kill you, and the other 2 just wanted to link up and game around a bit. There was some discussion about the final outcome, though. However, I was the stream sniper, so he was the long-range guy who killed me. When you spotted player A and player B in the woods, they simply wanted to say hello, but my instinct kicked in to get the kill in case you went to shot. The M107 was aiming very low as the distance was more than 200 meters. The distance was no more than 200 meters, so I had to take more than a few shots than normal to get the kill. It's too bad it ended the stream and I stopped your fun. I planned on taking out Evan first as he was more experienced and therefore the threat. The result would have been a frantic, what do I do and where is he?
God, that's a fucking letter from the Zodiac.
Yeah, I only had a clean shot at Mike's character. I was going by Mike in the game. And clean is a bad reference as it took a total of 7 to get the kill. As mentioned in the stream chat, you were killed by a Foreign Legion veteran. I also served in the U.S. Army in many roles, including sniper, infantry, and correctional officer of Fort Leavenworth.
Holy shit. Yeah.
In the end, it was a good stream. Sorry for the investigation and kill. Regards, Tango Wrangler. So that was that guy.
So you were taken down by a military specialist of some kind, apparently.
Yeah, a former sniper.
Well, can we take the moment to appreciate that this guy wrote this elaborate, like probably 1,000-word note to us?
Yeah.
I mean, like, and partly probably because he felt like he had to.
Yeah,
he had to like
the gravity of the game because of the permadeath, and because of the systems.
Well, he not only did he want to construct a story for himself, he needed to spread the story to us and to make sure we knew the full context of what we were experiencing. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You needed to know that you were sort of helped.
I get messages like these all the time when I'm playing Call of Duty on my Xbox.
Oh, you do?
It usually says like LOL, and then like an epithet. It's very similar, I think.
Sure. Yeah, it's about the same thing. Same sentiment, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
But apparently we were killed by the best.
Yeah.
Then, killed by the best.
And then, a few days later, we got an email to questions@idlethumbs.net from Dan Gray saying, howdy, just got done listening to your latest awesome free entertainment hour. Chris made mentions of documents pertaining to the DayZ stream, which I suspect involved myself. First off, I'll apologize again for sniping you chaps, particularly for inflicting so much downtime midstream. I can't gift you all half an hour through Steam. Yeah, I'm not sure what that means.
He can't give us back the time that he took, is what he's saying, yeah.
Secondly, assuming my last correspondence might be pod material, I would expand upon the topic of player-character bonding. And then, this is really interesting. He just writes several paragraphs about DayZ and like what it involves. He says, DayZ engages the player in so much banal activity, eating, drinking, looking at maps, riding a bike, and general downtime, running, waiting for a friend, the prone zone. That something extraordinary happens. We experience, I guess, a Katamari effect, he says. We travel along, rolling up more and more of the world into our shared experience. The state was glancingly sought in Quantic Dream's Fahrenheit and Heavy Rain through similar but less pervasive experiences. Personally, both games failed, in my opinion. For one, the contrivedness of the plot and worlds is at odds with the brief simulations of the banal. There's not enough yawn-inducing crap for the supernatural to stand out. Rather, it's the super normal that seems out of place. That's a really excellent point, I think. Video games fail on that constantly. It's a huge failing.
Well, too much emphasis on the hero fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. It's the mundane things that end up being remarkable in games. Not always, but often. Mm-hmm. He continues. Contrast that with Shenmue and its sequel, a pair of games so obsessed with minutia and daily grind that punching time slips and paying rent can actually obscure the central quest. Despite that potentially game-destroying obfuscation, Shenmue's character and story are among the most enduring. Also, punching dudes through a mailbox becomes more awesome when you just folded your laundry.
No doubt.
He says, so anyway, somewhere between cowering in terror, eating Snickers and competing unspeakable acts, DayZ characters get wrapped up in mundane Katamari, and the player's emotional experience develops a range and fidelity not found anywhere else that I know of. So
this is the guy who shot you?
Apparently so.
So a fucking best guy. Holy shit.
This is like a modern samurai that's like giving us this extreme like...
He worked in his rhetorical skills while he was in the Foreign Legion, apparently.
Yeah.
God.
A good man.
How honorable.
Awesome.
How honorable indeed.
Yeah, no kidding. So that was... DayZ is a crazy game, FYI.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it for this week.
We were killed by the best murderer.
Yep. God, you were killed by the best is such like... That sounds legit, but then you were killed by the best murderer. It takes it to a different place.
Evan, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, sure. To our very hot office.
We'll have to have you on again someday, be it for a podcast or a DayZ stream or whatever.
I'll have to have one of you on PC Gamer.
Sweet.
Yeah. One or more.
Thanks a lot. Bye, guys.
See you guys.
Bye. Questions at idlethumbs.net.
Subscribe to us on iTunes.
You can visit the Idle Thumbs website at idlethumbs.net/idlethumbs. A ridiculous URL that is real. Oh, and if you want to see the photos of the PAX meetup from PAX, go to blog.idlethumbs.net. It's there. And finally, last thing, this Saturday we are going to do a Saturday morning stream of the original XCOM with Evan Lottie and JP LeBreton, who is an expert at that game. So please tune in for that. probably around 11 a.m. Pacific time.
Video games.
Video games.
I thought, and I haven't even seen her breasts in all this time. Felt them, but not seen them. Also, she's completely wrong about Dvorak and Tchaikovsky. What's more, I'll be able to play my LP of Un homme et une femme as often as I like, openly.
Video game.
Thanks, Evan Lahti, executive editor of PC Gamer, just to identify exactly who was just recounting those memories just now.
Of his.
They are memories.
Yeah.
Direct memories, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is there any such thing as a direct memory?
Is there any such thing as an indirect memory, Sean?
Yes. I don't know. Listen to the Idle Book Club to find out.
These questions and more conclusively answered on the Idle Book Club.
Okay.
Idle Book Club does what Julian Barnes don't. Answer those questions.
I'm Nick Brecken. Oh, God.
But am I Nick Brecken?
I got Brecken.
Wait, who are you, Sean?
I'm Nick Brecken. Damn it. It took like 3 months.
It took like 3 months until I'm Nick Brecken.
It took Nick a year to become Nick Brecken.
Games.